right, so for this next day, we are going to focus on below the horizon line, the ground spaces in our picture. And we're going to choose a different pattern to decorate each of these spaces using either our shapes or our lines. So each space should have something different in it. Now, it's only a pattern if we repeat that shape or line many, many times to fill the space. So if I only draw, let's say, one bumpy line in my space, that's not going to be a pattern. So when I get started, I'm going to pick a color for the space. And maybe for the first space, I decide to do wavy lines. So I'm going to draw a lot of wavy lines in that space. Make sure to press a little bit hard, because once we're done doing this, we're going to do a really cool watercolor trick on top of these spaces. And if we don't press hard enough with the oil pastel and we do it really lightly, it won't show up. So if it looks kind of like, I'm going to show you with some circles. If it looks like that, that's too light. You got to press a little bit harder so it looks like that. So I'm going to fill this space with orange circles. And you can color your circles in if you're doing a shape space. You can fill in that shape with the color as well. But we want to fill the whole space up. The other option would be that you could do a design inside the circles as well. So maybe I decide to put, let's say, pink dots inside of them. So I could color them, or I could do something like this where I use a new color and I decorate the inside as well. All right, so so far I have one shape pattern and one line pattern. I have a few more spaces. So then maybe in this space I do some blue. I'm gonna do here they are, the blue swirls. So I'm gonna add in some blue swirls. I'm gonna fill that space up with lots and lots of blue swirls. And then in the next space, maybe I'll do another shape pattern. You can also combine a couple of things together. So for example, I could do a pattern that maybe has some yellow stars, and then maybe also some other shape with it, like maybe some blue dots. I could do the light blue, kind of make it look like faraway stars. So I could do little blue dots in between and kind of combine two patterns together. I could also do this with lines, so I'll do that one next. So maybe I'll take, let's see, I'll do light green, dark green. So I could combine a couple of lines here. So maybe I do bumpy lines in light green, and then between these bumpy lines, I'll use dark green and choose a different line. So then maybe I'll do dark green zigzags between them. So you can combine two line patterns as well. You can also invent your own pattern. It may not be on this paper, but you could come up with your own pattern. So for my last one, I'm gonna do a circle chain kind of pattern, like a necklace. All right. Now that that's done, I'm going to be adding a color to each of these spaces with paint. So I'm ready to paint. So I need my brush, my water cup, and my paintbrush. And, oops, I think I said that twice. Paint set. So, water cup, brush, paint set. And when we paint, we want to choose a color that is going to show off our pattern. So we don't want to use the same color that's already there. So if my pattern is red, red is not a good choice for me. I want to do something that's not going to be too close to red. So maybe for this one, I will do blue. So I'm going to get my brush wet. I'm going to swirl it about 8 times in the paint. And then just like when we paint anything else, we want to carefully outline first. And when you outline, you're probably already noticing the oil pastel is resisting the paint. It's pushing it away. It's a really cool trick that works with watercolors and things like crayon or oil pastel. So make sure you have water on your brush when you're doing this, and be gentle, because if you rub really hard with the brush, it's going to smear the oil pastel and the trick won't work. So once you outline the space, you can fill it in, and you'll notice the oil pastel is popping right back out. It's it's pushing the watercolor paint off of it. That's called watercolor resist. So we're gonna do that for each of these spaces. Oh, I have a cool trick to show you too. If you ever do a pattern with white, let me add some white in here. I'll put some white dots in here too. So white is a really cool one. It's kind of like an invisible pattern. You can't see it with the oil pastel, but when you paint over it, it's gonna magically appear. All right, so then I'm not gonna use orange or pink here, so maybe I'll do green in that space. So I'm gonna get my brush clean because we only want one color on our brush at a time. I'm gonna swirl in there. I'm gonna outline the next space. And when I run out, gotta get a little bit more. All right, so I'm gonna gently fill it in. I'm not rubbing hard with the brush. And if it's covering it up, it probably means I didn't have enough water on my brush. Now, when I paint two spaces next to each other like this, there's a chance that they're gonna blend and mix together if the paints are really wet. So it is also a good idea sometimes to let a space dry and let this stay the way it is and maybe paint this one so that one has time to dry so they don't end up mixing together. All right, I'm gonna show you one more space here before it's your turn. So I'm gonna do this space here and I'm gonna choose magenta. So I'm gonna get my brush filled with magenta paint. I'm gonna outline first. You can see, oh, you're starting to see the white pop out. So outline first and then get a little more on here. And then fill it in and you can see there's the white. So the invisible pattern pops out when you paint over it. Just remember, use enough water and don't rub real hard. All right, so I still have 3 more spaces to paint before I'm finished, but once I finish these last 3 spaces, then I'm gonna stop and let it dry and we'll be working on the last part the next time.